So let me get this straight. BC thought they were making a deal. A compromise. A you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours situation where they'd expand Trans Mountain and avoid a whole new pipeline to the north coast. Classic Canadian negotiation, right? Except plot twist, they're getting both. Both pipelines. Double the tankers. Double the controversy. And David Eby just admitted through gritted teeth that yeah, he agreed to this. Welcome to the Carney-Smith Pact, where BC's ports are apparently the prize everyone's fighting over and nobody asked British Columbians if they wanted to host the world's busiest oil highway. Hey, welcome back to Canadian Insights, where we break down the political deals that make you go, wait, we agreed to what now? Today we're diving into how a backroom agreement between Alberta and the feds could mean way more oil tankers cruising through Burrard Inlet, why BC's Premier is publicly wincing about it, and how Trans Mountain went from being the alternative to being just the appetizer. Buckle up, because this one's messy. Let's rewind for a second. Trans Mountain. You know it, you've heard about it, you've probably argued about it at a dinner party. This pipeline expansion cost $34.2 billion. With AB. That's more than some countries' GDP. The federal government bought it from Kinder Morgan back in 2018 because apparently Justin Trudeau woke up one day and thought, you know what Canada needs? The government to be in the oil pipeline business. And here we are. The whole pitch was that Trans Mountain would be the solution. Expand this existing pipeline, get Alberta's oil to tidewater, boost the economy, and avoid building a whole new pipeline through BC's pristine northwest coast. Everybody wins, right? BC gets to protect sensitive ecosystems up north, Alberta gets to ship more oil, and the feds get to look like they are balancing the economy with the environment. Classic Canadian compromise. Sounds great on paper. Except here's where things get spicy. Danielle Smith, Alberta's Premier and professional thorn in everyone's side, casually mentioned that David Eby, BC's Premier, had actually agreed to way more than people realized. Not just Trans Mountain as is, but expanding it even further. We're talking about a 40% capacity increase. That means around 360,000 more barrels per day flowing through that pipeline. And you know what that means? More tankers. A lot more tankers. In the Salish Sea. Through Burrard Inlet. Past Vancouver. The very thing environmental groups have been freaking out about for years. Now, David Eby's response to this revelation was basically the political equivalent of a grimace emoji. He literally said, and I quote, I will acknowledge through gritted teeth this is not something we're keen about. Through gritted teeth. That's not exactly the enthusiasm you want to hear from someone who just signed off on a major infrastructure decision. That's the tone of someone who got outplayed at the negotiating table and knows it. But Eby tried to spin it. He said BC understands the role they play. They've got ports. Alberta needs access to those ports. They're partners. It's all very cooperative and Canadian, except for the part where BC thought this expansion would be instead of a new northern pipeline, not in addition to it. Whoops. Because here's the kicker. The Memorandum of Understanding that got signed last month between Alberta and the federal government literally says both projects are happening. It's right there in black and white. This new pipeline would be in addition to the expansion of the Trans Mountain pipeline. So BC agreed to expand Trans Mountain thinking they were preventing a northern pipeline, and instead they're getting both. It's like ordering a salad to be healthy and then the waiter brings you a salad and a deep-fried cheeseburger and says, surprise, you're getting both. Let's talk about what this actually means on the ground. Trans Mountain right now has a capacity of 890,000 barrels per day. It's not even running at full capacity yet, and they're already talking about bumping it up by another 300,000 to 400,000 barrels. That's huge. And every extra barrel means more tankers in the water. More ships navigating the tricky waters of Burrard Inlet. More risk of spills. More noise affecting marine life, especially the already struggling orca populations. More everything that environmentalists and coastal communities have been warning about. Eby tried to justify it by saying Trans Mountain is publicly owned. Taxpayers paid for it. $34 billion of taxpayer money. So yeah, they're going to optimize it. They're going to make sure it's used to its full potential. That's the logic. And honestly, from a purely economic standpoint, it's not crazy. If you've already spent that much money on infrastructure, you might as well use it. But the problem is nobody really asked British Columbians if they wanted to go all in on being Canada's oil export hub. And here's where the Indigenous angle gets even more complicated. Eby pointed out that the oil tanker ban on the north coast is foundational to Indigenous support for other major projects in the province. A lot of First Nations on the northwest coast have been adamant that they don't want tankers in their waters. They don't want the risk. They don't want the environmental impact. And BC's provincial government has supported that position. But now, with this deal, it looks like the trade-off is just shifting the tanker traffic south instead of eliminating it. So instead of tankers off the north coast, you get way more tankers in the south. Not exactly the win some communities thought they were getting. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. This whole situation is a perfect example of how federal-provincial politics in Canada can turn into a game of telephone where everybody hears something different and nobody's on the same page. Alberta wants market access for its oil. The federal government wants to look like it's supporting the energy sector while also meeting climate goals. BC wants to protect its coastline and keep Indigenous communities on side. And somehow, through a series of meetings and memorandums and gritted teeth agreements, we end up with a deal where everyone's kind of unhappy but it's moving forward anyway. Danielle Smith, for her part, is probably loving this. She gets what she wants. More pipeline capacity. More oil flowing. More revenue for Alberta. And she gets to watch BC squirm a little bit in the process. That's a political win for her. She can go back to Albertans and say, look, I fought for you, I got the pipelines, I got the expansion, we're in business. Easy. But for Eby, this is trickier. He's got to sell this to British Columbians who are not thrilled about becoming the country's oil tanker superhighway. He's got to balance economic pragmatism with environmental concerns. He's got to keep Indigenous leaders on side when some of them are definitely not happy about this. And he's got to do all of that while admitting through gritted teeth that yeah, this wasn't really his first choice. Good luck with that. So what happens next? Well, the expansion talks are ongoing. The federal government's involved. Alberta's pushing hard. BC's reluctantly going along with it. And environmentalists are gearing up for another round of protests, legal challenges, and public pressure campaigns. This is far from over. If anything, we're just getting started. If you want to stay on top of all the twists and turns in Canadian politics, and trust me there are a lot of them, make sure you're subscribed to Canadian Insights. We're posting multiple videos every day because this country never stops giving us material. Hit that notification bell, drop a comment below telling me what you think about this whole tanker situation, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay tuned.